Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another round of the Loeries Creative Hour, and quite an exciting one today. We've got two great guests. Before I start, I think one of the key things on the highlight is for everyone who's joining us, and thank you for everyone from across the regions who across Africa and the Middle East who are able to join us today. If you do want to share some of the insights, you can use the hashtag #CreateChange, which is our hashtag for the Loeries for this year, or the hashtag Loeries Creative Hour. One of the key things is, one of the reasons that we're now in this world where we need to do webinars and discussions like this is purely because of the challenges that COVID-19 has brought. And as part of the challenges, we have opportunities like this for us to connect better. One of the other opportunities that we've worked on is that because it's been a tough year for brands, for agencies, what the Loeries has done to support the industry is to make entries free this year. So one of the key things I want to remind you is if you do have an opportunity, please go out and enter into the Loeries Awards. Entries close on the 15th of July. And moving straight on to our guests. Today we have two great guests, Cathy Lund, who's the head of content of WOOLWORTHS Marketing. Hi, Cathy, welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having us here today.
Thanks for joining us. And Brian Mtongana, who's the design director of WOOLWORTHS Marketing. Hi, Brian, thanks for joining us. Ooh, Brian, so I'm just unmute you quickly. I think you're muted over there. There we go. That should be better. Okay. Hi again, Brian.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Great to have both of you here. I think for anyone who doesn't know who's joining us, WOOLWORTHS is one of the sponsors of the Loeries, and specifically WOOLWORTHS sponsors the WOOLWORTHS Student Portfolio Day. And this is such a fantastic initiative because it gives top students an opportunity to be part of the Loeries. They come through, they get to showcase their work. Over 50 students, generally from around the country, from around South Africa, who join and come through. And it's turned into more than just a portfolio day. It's turned into an opportunity where these students now are viewed by some of the best agencies. They have an opportunity to go out and work for some of the best agencies. So the HR departments are coming and saying, this is the talent pool that I want and I should get into my organization. So it's a great showcase in terms of getting great talent into the industry and for ensuring that advertising and branding is supported. So we'll be discussing a lot more of that. But I think, one of the key things we have to focus on, Cathy and Brian, and maybe Cathy will start with you, is firstly, how are you doing? How are you coping during this challenging time of COVID-19?
I think now so much better, both personally and professionally. When we first went into lockdown, we really had to pivot our whole marketing comms. What we had was just not relevant anymore. It just wasn't relevant. And keeping in mind that also our business changed drastically. I mean, we had to close down our fashion, our beauty, our homeware offering, and we could only trade food. So we had huge challenges right at the beginning of lockdown, but we're absolutely able to pivot and persevere and come out with a whole new strategy, which has proven very successful. So we're now in the ways of working have calmed down. We've got our rhythm, we've got our groove, and we are continuing to create beautiful, beautiful work that's really pertinent and relevant during these times, but also really helping our customer. Because it's tough out there, economically, and working at home with kids. I mean, I myself am a single mom to my 5-year-old daughter, and Preetesh met her earlier because she ran in the room.
It was amazing. It's cool.
So I think we've really gotten into a groove. So I'm good, thank you.
Fantastic. And Cathy, while I was staying with you, what does it mean to be head of content at WOOLWORTHS? Because I think a lot of people who are viewing, who may not be within the organization, are curious, what does the head of content at WOOLWORTHS Marketing do?
Okay, so quintessentially, let me tell you a little bit about the agency for those who aren't privy to Woolies and the ways of working. So we brought our agency, or started an internal agency a number of years back. I can't think of exactly how long ago, where we had our own creative directors working in-house and creating the work in-house. that then extended to corporate CI and to packaging, which is where Brian's team and what the section of the agency that he heads up. And then finally, the Woolworths decided that they wanted to go the content marketing avenue. So I was actually editor-in-chief of Cosmopolitan magazine. So I come from a heavy publishing background. And they were looking for somebody who was able to create content that was more editorial. So I was brought in then 4 years ago, and I oversee the always on content strategy. So that's the content that you see constantly coming from our team. Yeah.
Fantastic. And Brian, on your side, so how have you been coping with COVID-19? I'm sure it's been a challenge for everyone. And how has it been in your situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite a roller coaster, because I'm also like a father of 4 little kids. So
brilliant. It's my dream to have as many kids as I can. I want 10, but
meetings, Zoom in between and all that. So it's been quite a challenge, but we've managed to navigate the 2 worlds in an interesting way, actually. And also what it has done as well is that, funny enough, from a professional point of view, like in terms of our teams, it has brought us much closer together. Obviously, we're physically distancing, but funny enough, that connection is much stronger with us working remotely, which is quite interesting as well. And also what's been great as well is everyone has been putting in terms of making sure that we are stable, we're able to deliver to all the work, and everyone has been really, really chipping in, which has been amazing. So the amount of support, because obviously around this time, imagine the anxiety, the stress, obviously being locked down at home and not being able to do things that are essential and all of that. At the same time, we've got work commitments. So it's been really amazing. And as Cathy was saying, that even the amount of the caliber of work that's been coming out has been really, really interesting, because I guess maybe also at the same time, maybe working in your own creative environment or comfort of your home, maybe does contribute somehow, obviously, in terms of the type of work that is produced, And sometimes you would think that when people are working at home, would loaf around or maybe not be able to deliver. But it's been amazing, the productivity around this time, and everyone really, really wants to make sure that we all navigate this unprecedented world seamlessly.
I can agree.
I love what Brian was saying about how from the comfort of our homes we've been able to create such different things. And I was thinking about it the other day, and I was thinking, the cliche that is always thrown at a creative, it's so gross, and everyone who's going to hear me say it now is going to gag, is guys, think outside the box. The irony is that we are literally looking at each other now in boxes. But I was thinking about that cliche, and about how the boxes weren't just creative and in our minds, but they were physical as well. The boxes were the buildings and the roads and the ways of life, which was so formulaic and so, so structured, and it was becoming, our lives were Groundhog Day. And I think that from a creative perspective, because we were thrown out of the comfort and the normality of that, that all of a sudden our creative juices, and we're thinking in different ways, because we literally are viewing the world in a completely, and feeling the world in a completely different way. And that has really, I think has inspired creatives over this time. Not just the work that our teams are doing, for Woolies, they're 9 to 5, if you will, not that it's ever 9 to 5, but 9 to 5, if you will. But the work that our teams are doing in a personal space at the moment is absolutely exquisite. And we do agency shares sessions every 2 weeks. And anyone listening, it's such a beautiful opportunity to also reach out to your creative teams and find out, in a personal space, what are they creating? What are they painting? What are they writing? What are they, that work that's been generated during this time is so special and so unique, because we will never have this time again. Hopefully.
I also hope we won't have this time again. And I read all the scary data that goes that, we should expect pandemics of this sort at least once every 20 years. So we're likely to experience it again in our lifetime. But again, I think speaking to your point as well, Cathy, is that, you know, a lot of it is about stimulus as well. And I guess, Brian, as a design director, a lot of what you get is the outside world provides the stimulus that you actually need that comes into your work. How are you trying to find that stimulus, especially at a time when you can't go out and have that tactile experience in the real world?
I mean, it's quite interesting. I'm currently reading a thesis, a master's thesis by a student in Eindhoven. And there's an extract there, and then where he says, in periods of crisis, be it an economical downfall, ecological crisis, or any sort of scarcity, people tend to come up with creative solutions to take benefit of the situation. This concept can be captured into a one-liner. Scarcity acts as a catalyst for creativity and innovation. You know, like it's so powerful. When I read that, I was like, wow, because of the scarcity of time, of freedom, of all the things that you're used to, you know. But funny enough, it takes you to a space of creativity and innovation because you're not obviously abundance of, yeah, exactly. It's just that. And also it was quite interesting because also like the crisis has forced us to rethink our routines and the methods and the ways of doing things, you know. So basically you're being challenged. And I was listening to an interview by Rich Nisi. He's one of the top South African designers. He was saying that COVID-19 is a bully. You know, it's a bully.
It's a nice way of thinking about it.
Into innovation. You are being bullied to innovate and to be creative. And he was talking about the fact that he wasn't planning to have an online store, you know, but because, I mean, there's no fashion shows, there's basically you're stuck. You are being bullied to think outside the box. I mean, Cathy just mentioned now. So for me, the fact that within that scarcity, I think there's inspiration there that lies within that, because you almost like have to dig deep within, you know, like I find. And also it's almost like the stuff that you've always been filling up over time with all the things that you've been immersing yourself in and being a sponge and all of that, you're digging deep into those things, like you're taking withdrawals because you've been making deposits over time. You know, it's almost like time for a withdrawal now, and really, and also like the fact that but funny enough is that we exposed to so much because there's so much content that's happening. We've been exposed to anyway, because I mean, on social media, I mean, everywhere you're just exposed to some cool stuff. You go to Netflix, you go to this. I mean, it's just like spoiled for choice. And then also like people have time, they've got time, and people can now watch long videos, you know, because they've got time, they immerse themselves into different things and all that. So like in terms of inspiration, I wouldn't say that there's lack of. I think that there is, but it's a different kind. You know, it's not the way that we're used to get inspiration. It's obvious you can't travel and look at design trends. You can't do this, you know. But I think it's a new world, but it's a very interesting space.
Yeah.
I like that take in terms of COVID-19 being a bully, because it's a nice analogy in terms of how it's impacting us. It's really bullied us into a new way. Cathy, one of the ways that I think, using Brian's example of COVID-19 being a bully, is it's not just bullied us as individuals and as society, but also in terms of our systems, our processes, our thinking, and find innovative work processes. How you find that? Are you finding that during this time you've been able to innovate and come up with new work processes that were totally different from before?
I mean, absolutely. I wouldn't say different, but I would definitely say sped up, or you know, I think that we take time for granted. And we did, should I say, we did take time for granted. And when you are working with multiple sign-offs over creative work, often you find that it gets chipped away, you know, the more it's reviewed and the more people that have access to it. And I think that we had to turn work around really quickly, and we had to be very decisive about it, because we didn't have the luxury of sitting in offices and reviewing work one-on-one. And so we had to be a lot more focused and a lot more decisive about what we chose constituted good work and good enough work. And that was another thing, was that, I mean, I always have spoken about the 80-20 rule, about, you know, when it comes to content particularly, and this is not about, you know, above the line TV ads and stuff like that, which costs huge amounts of money, and absolutely you can't fault in quality. But when you are creating content at the speed that is expected from your audience, not from your bosses, your audience are expecting to be fed constantly with content and information and inspiration and education, you know, education about the products that you have to offer. You need to churn, you need to get the stuff going out quickly. So I've definitely found that from our process perspective, we've been a lot more disciplined to get it right, get it out. If it's not right, pull it off, get it right again, you know. So it's really helped in that way.
And I think one of the challenges, as you're saying, Cathy, is like you're right. It's actually dictated by the audience right now. And being the retail environment, the biggest challenge was, as you've both highlighted, you've had a pipeline, a plan for the entire year probably, and COVID-19's totally disrupted that. Brian, how do you cope with that? I mean, when you've got a plan that's in place, and suddenly now your audience, because of the environment, the audience needs are totally different, and the audience demanding a different type of information. And for any organization, it puts pressure. How were you able to cope with it, and how was Woolworths marketing able to cope with the challenges based on the audience need?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna quote one of the top celebrities in South Africa, Queen Bee. She's got this line which says, "Just give the people what they want," you know, and then it became like a big thing. It had like T-shirts as well. Even on Twitter, it's always like a thing, give the people what they want. I think it's more about that, because at the center of it all, obviously the person at home, or I hate to say the consumer because it sounds kind of corporate, but the person at home is the star of the show. Basically, has become the star of the show. It's about that person, because people are at home, obviously looking for inspiration from brands and all that. And also, like, it's not just like inspiration for the sake of inspiration, but things that are relatable, done in an authentic and then real way as well. Because even the way that we do things, also, we had to almost like rethink, as Cathy was alluding earlier, in terms of how do we do it in such a way that is relatable. Because obviously with us as well, we want to do it in a polished way, in a perfect way, because it's perfect. That's the aesthetic of the brand. And also we had to rethink all of that, you know, because it's about real time now. You know, you need to create content. You don't have a production budget, and there's no crew that you're going to pull together just now of like 10, 20 people. No, everyone is at home. You know, you've got all these people in remote locations, and what do you do? And you have to be agile and respond. So basically, this situation has also like made us like to be like really creative and learn and unlearn. See, at the same, there's like two things. You unlearn some things, and then you learn different ways of doing things in such a way that is relatable and is authentic and is done at home, because you can see like it's real. And it's been interesting, because even if you see comments from people, like they keep on saying, "Oh, it looks so real." Geez, I see myself there in that. So it's been quite interesting in that sense. And also, obviously, you keep on have to churning stuff out and all that. You have to be like creative and conceptual in terms of what is next. And also you need to read the room as well. You can't just do something, you know, you have to read the room. Very important. You're at a backlash. You can't be selling stuff and doing hard sell and doing this. You have to read the room. Very, very important.
Completely.
And almost like take a human form as a brand rather than a retailer.
It should be.
Become a human being and appear, and as in, we're in this together. You know, we're friends, we in this together. Got you. Yeah.
And to add to that, if I can, I mean, you know, showing up, how do you show up in the market at the moment? With great empathy, you know. This pandemic has humanized all of us. internally within Woolworths and externally, you know, within South Africa and globally. And it's, and I mean, another cliche, but that's come out of COVID, but one that is so true is that we're all going through the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat. And people are experiencing this pandemic and this lockdown very differently, you know, and we have to be empathetic. We have to really lean in and tonally be listening. And I just lost my train of thought because my dog's at the door. I'm going to hand back to one of you guys.
No, maybe if I think that's such a true and such a valid point in terms of the challenges that society is going through. And one of the things I think that I've appreciated as an individual as well is a role that retail and my local Woolies up the road here has played in ensuring that our community is propped up and supported during this time as well. One of the things when we looked at the topic for our discussion today, you both came up with a really nice topic, which is inside the difference, which plays very nicely on the Woolies phrasing as well. What does it mean? I mean, what does that mean for you? And why was this the line that you came up with for the topic that we're speaking today?
So,
and Brian, okay, Cathy.
Oh, sorry. So inside the difference is actually a line that we've been playing, we'll be using at the moment. It is actually customer facing, but it's a line that was birthed during one of our creative councils. Our head of agency, Kate Fordyce, we were looking at ways of really unpacking and what we refer to as like, open up the bonnet, look inside. We have got nothing to hide. It's about authenticity. It's about really showing up in the market and saying, guys, ask us about anything, about I see there's already a comment about plastic. Thank you, Michelle. And I'll get to that at the end of this convo, if that's okay. But ask us about plastic, because we know that it is something that is really challenging people. Ask us about our sustainability practices. Ask us about the journey we are about conserving water and soil health. Ask us about the journey we are on with Better Cotton Initiative. You know, all of these practices that we are doing at the moment, we want to be authentic and transparent. So that then birthed the line inside the difference. So our tagline obviously being the difference, it's an extension of that. And it really is that. It is really about, this is who we are, this is what we do, we're not hiding anything, ask us anything. Yeah, and hopefully we can answer.
Yeah, and also I think just to add on that, it's also about the practices that we go through, like in terms of like getting you the best product as well. Whether is it our cold chain or how we source like raw material and all of that, or whether is it cocoa, or whether something is free range and all that, in terms of like the care that happens in the background that you don't get to see as a customer. Obviously you see the end product on shelf, which you appreciate, but there's a lot more, like there's like 90% of stuff that happens behind the scenes. Inside the bonnet, you see a beautiful car, but inside that engine, you know, there's stuff that makes this car to be what it is. And then what you appreciate, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever tasted, or whatever the feeling is. So, and also like for us, it's also about dialing up that, because people are also like interested in the story behind the brand, like the story behind what I'm eating, like where does it come from? How was it made actually? And all that. So that's also like about inside the difference, is that stuff that inside there, what are those processes that you, or the strengths and the lengths that you went through to give me this and all that, which is what obviously we always talk about in terms of the difference. And obviously a product, especially foods, is one of obviously our key strength as a brand in terms of innovation, quality, and all of that. And obviously for us, like that difference or inside the difference is key in terms of like unpacking all of that to a customer, and also like at the customer level as well. Because now people are more informed, they read, and sometimes more, if not more, they're more informed than you as a brand.
Yeah.
You know, they will question you on stuff. They will call you out.
Yeah, they're conscious. Yeah.
You can't just like and claim something or whatever. You can't. Those days are gone. You find that the consumer is more informed than you. They will teach you about stuff now, but then I don't agree with this because of these reasons. And then you have that equal penalty. It's no longer about the mighty, you know, and then the small consumer. There's almost like a shift that has happened over time. And also, like, obviously with social media and different media forms, it has empowered the consumer as well. So it's important that obviously to be relevant, to know where the consumer is right now and all of that. So yeah, I mean, there's so much more we can share about.
No, that's
but
so
also
true.
Like just to close on that, also in terms of relevance to this topic, it was like a clever way in terms of what happens at Woolworths, like from a creative point of view. How do you guys do stuff? And then what is that, you know, because sometimes you go to a Woolies store, you just see stuff and all of that. But there's people, there's creatives, there's people are passionate about what they do, who are behind all these things that you appreciate when you obviously, and there's different creative teams. And people don't know that. They think like everything maybe could be outsourced, whatever. I mean, there's store design teams, there's visual merchandise teams, there's obviously through the line team, there's people who do branding, there's people who do communication. I mean, it's a big machine. There's content, there's copywriters, there's digital designers, there's finishing artists, it's a big machine, you know, and that's what happens inside that bonnet, you know, inside that difference, that there's a machine behind all of it.
Always go, it's like it's retail is really like, it's like a fine watch, a mechanical watch with lots of moving pieces, and it's just one seamless experience. I think that's an amazing thing within the Woolworths ecosystem as well, is you can go into the stores and you have a seamless experience, but what you don't realize, and I think a lot of people don't realize, is that seamless experience was put together by multiple groups of people, multiple teams working at different time frames. So something may have been designed 2 years ago, but something from 2 years ago needs to ensure that it fits into the existing language of the store footprint right now as well. And that's an amazing thing, because there's so many different elements. Maybe I just want to say hi to a few people as well. You know, it's amazing when people join us, and just to mention Katrien Grobler, Leander Peter, Naledi Stefane, Neil de Mering, let's go, Olesh, let's go. A few people. Thank you so much for being in the call as well. Maybe should we also say hi to Michelle Morgan and Cathy? I know
Hello, Michelle.
where Cathy says she has to bring up plastic, and I think everyone's discussing plastic today. So Michelle has this insight, which I haven't heard, that during the pandemic, well, actually, yeah, I get this. During the pandemic, single-use plastic in some areas is now being seen as important to health and safety. Okay, definitely get that now. From a messaging point of view and potentially design, how is Woolworths balancing this with their sustainability drive and plastic reduction strategies? Or has there been little impact? I want to say something. Do you know what I noticed? There was a time I could go into a Woolies, and if you needed a disposable fork or a spoon, you got a plastic fork and spoon, and that's now wooden in most places that I go. So that's just an example that as a consumer that I'm noticing. But Cathy, do you want to give us some insight in terms of?
I mean, to this exact point about during COVID, I don't feel comfortable answering on behalf of the company. I would love for our head of what we call our good business journey to answer. Because he's just got a wealth of information and knows exactly what the company is doing to that regard. But we certainly are on a journey, and we are very cognizant of South African audiences' feelings towards our use of plastic. It's you can't miss it. I mean, people are really challenging us quite vocally and rightly. We completely believe that we need to be in a much stronger position, but it is not that there's no work being done. There's massive amounts of work being done. So again, it's not my department. Brian, I'm not sure if you want to speak to design, but what I would love to do is just get the email addresses of anyone, Michelle, anyone who's interested, and then I can email them our latest stats and information around our zero plastic to landfill journey, which we are absolutely committed to as a business.
Yeah, just to add on that, thanks for raising that example with the spoon. So obviously there's a lot of like small things that we've done, small steps. right? And also like in terms of obviously straws, earbuds, you won't find earbuds, plastic earbuds like anymore and all that. And also like a reduction of plastic. There's been a lot of work. There's some areas where plastic has been like taken out like totally, and sometimes using like recyclable plastic that you can recycle. And also like just like an insight as well when it comes to food, especially because I know like the heat is around food packaging especially. So there's different challenges there, like in terms of food packaging, because one of them is food safety. So you can't just package anything on any type of material or substrate.
Yeah.
Because food safety, if someone were to get sick because the food was packaged in something which was not, obviously didn't meet the legislation or something that to preserve the food and all that, then you're talking about something else. And also what's happening is that there's another conundrum or pandemic we're dealing with, which is food waste. Food waste, I mean, when you actually look at the stats of how much food is actually wasted, it's sickening. Actually, when you actually look at how much, like hunger is out there, but how much food is actually wasted. So packaging also like contributes in terms of that, in terms of avoiding food waste. There's also like transport tests, because making sure that when food is transported from obviously a DC from and all that, it's properly like packaged, because if it's not, what will happen is that customers are not going to buy it, you know, and it goes to waste and all that. And also like there's also store light. Store light also changes the quality of product, you know. So you also have to consider, there's a lot of science in terms of how a product is packaged. And there's a lot of factors in play. There's constantly innovation that's happening. We've got like a team of people who are packaging specialists, challenging suppliers, and constantly in terms of what are the latest trends in terms of materials and all that. That first of all, like they're safe to package food, and then also like they can obviously handle any type of environment in terms of store lights and all of that. But we've done a lot of work, and in some instances we've been communicating some of the obviously the wins that we've been having and all that. Obviously, we need to communicate far more so that the customers can see obviously the journey that we're on. As Cathy was saying, that it's a journey and we've made commitments.
And Brian, can I, sorry. I think this is such a nice opportunity as well to show, you know, because there is a massive science behind packaging, but this being a creative hour, to take it back to the creative, we did a beautiful piece of work 2 Christmases ago with plastic, and that exact point in our Christmas, what we call our gifting window. So I'm going to quickly share that piece of work to show you that as creatives, we can also use a recyclable plastic to very good use, not to only bring about important messaging around this, but also create something aesthetically beautiful, which is often what design is as well. So I hope I get this right. Preetesh, stand by.
Perfect. I'm sure.
Okay, tell me if this is, if you guys are seeing it.
Perfect. If you can hit the play button.
Yeah, that's that one.
Yeah.
Go to full screen.
Oh, sorry. There we go. Better?
There we go.
So that is a beautiful example of a piece of work that we did. That was the creative director, Kristen Boshoff, who is in our VM side of things. Him and his team put together. And I mean, it really is, you know, there are so many challenges. There's, Brian was talking about global hunger, and there's so many purposes that we as a business are committed to, but also creatively we are committed to, you know, bringing about beauty out of something that's ugly, I guess.
And also, like, I think what was amazing as well about that video as well is, I mean, around this time, the whole idea of local is going to be a big thing. It is a big thing now. It's going to be even louder and louder in terms of supporting the local economy, circular economy, and all of that. And also, this project was also part of that. I mean, these women, I mean, most of them, they've never, it was the first time even going to a mall. Some of them first time going to a lift or even escalators, you know, like being on an escalator for the first time in their lives. I mean, so imagine working on something like that, that became like this like Christmas wonder. And actually this project actually won an award in London in one of the big design competitions. Obviously, like, I mean, against obviously big brands, which I won't necessarily mention here, you know, internationally, but it just shows the power of the idea, and then something that can, from a design point of view, because it was a design project in terms of the designing the window, you know, just showing how design can actually create almost like an emotional connection with the brand. It's such a powerful story, because I remember the first time I actually saw this video, I actually cried, because I don't know, I was, geez, I mean, dude, why am I crying, you know? But it was just an amazing thing. I was so moved, you know, when I saw it, because you should see their eyes when they saw what they've been creating somewhere. You know, obviously they've just been seeing what they're creating, but now seeing it in context that, these guys, this is what we've been building, and seeing for the first time, it's been amazing. But also, like, in terms of like upcycling, in terms of reuse of plastic, there's different ways. It's recycle, reuse, upcycle, giving it second life and all of that, to make sure it doesn't land in a landfill. And also that plastic also, I mean, we've got a denim that is made from plastic bottles, you know, we've got duvets made from
duvet inners, pillows.
I mean, inners,
one of the
Sorry,
one of the inside of the, oh, we're talking over each other.
No, it's fine, it's fine.
But one of the pieces that I actually literally this week have been working on with my creative team is around our plastic bottles, and how we save every single year 1 million plastic bottles from going to landfill by creating duvet inners. And it's like, you don't even see it. I mean, it's something that you literally just feel, you don't even see it, but it is one of our, you know, it's one of our practices. And creatively, we have to now spin that into a beautiful story about how this, you know, how this bottle becomes a duvet inner. So, yeah.
Well, I can tell you, you know, from a consumer, like, I don't know what's happening in Woods, but I can tell you that when things happen internally, consumers notice it. And that's all I have is my consumer experience. And then as a consumer, when I'm in the stores, as I was mentioning earlier, you notice the difference and the reduction in plastic and all of that that's happening. As I said, it's the simple fork or the spoon example, which is now wooden, and that's amazing that that's happening. You know, one of the things I just want to move on to, and just in terms of staying within this COVID-19 world and the examples that you're giving, is a lot of this is obviously rooted in some deep customer data and insights, and it's a tough time to try and secure these. Cathy, are you finding that you're able to still get these insights? And then maybe once Cathy's and Brian, you can tell us how you're able to use these insights in terms of all into that customer facing execution that's happening. So Cathy, do you want to start?
So we've got an incredible internal customer team headed up by Charlene van Zyl, and the team have been harder at work than ever, tapping into the South African audience and the Woolworths audience at every step of lockdown. So they partnered with Kantar, who put out like a global bot on Facebook and asking people about the effects of COVID, the effects of lockdown on their homes, their well-being, etc., mental health, all of that. And we were able to partner with them here in South Africa. So it's again, it gave a very unique information regarding how South Africans are experiencing COVID at the moment. So we had that arm. We had our own research that we ran with our Woolies customers. We've got, you know, over I think 4 million loyal customers that are part of our W Rewards program. And then also just looking at our own content analytics, like what was really trending, what was getting lots of likes, lots of engagements, as well as search terms. So we were monitoring this whole time what people were searching for that was eventually they were finding on our website. So all of this kind of information amalgamated together, and then also lots of foods insights as well, gave us incredibly deep, rich data for which helped us on an hourly basis formulate what the content was that we needed to be putting out there. So something as simple as you know, the fact that the kids were all of a sudden in the kitchen and baking, and not only to produce food. I mean, that was actually the last thing. It was keeping them occupied for 2 hours. And mom and dad were like struggling to find things to do with these kids, especially like 10 to 17, you know, that they didn't want them sitting on their iPads all day. So we saw these incredible pieces of customer insights that we were able to like immediately turn on content that was like, get the kids into the kitchen, keep them occupied for this amount of time, and in the end you also get a cake, you know, or a donut or something. So there was that kind of stuff. And from a fashion perspective also, I mean, people are just wearing tracksuit pants and smart tops. We know that. And slippers. I mean, everyone is dressing from the waist up. So a lot of our content then was really around that. You know, we know that we're going into before content, like trend really led the conversation when it came to fashion. And now it really is comfort and versatility and quality. People don't want to go back into the store multiple times during winter to top up on joggers and jerseys. You know, they want to go once. They're scared of going to the shop, so they're looking for quality. So it's just beautiful information that's really influenced our decision making when it comes to our outputs, our tone, and our content.
Yeah. And Brian, how are you using this data for design purposes right now?
I think, I mean, it's very important because, you know, I've got this analogy of designing for the brand versus designing for the consumer. You know, those are two different things, because obviously, of course, you're designing for the brand, you know, but it's about designing for the consumer, for designing with the end user in mind. You know, it's almost like cooking for yourself versus cooking for people. You know, those are two different things, you know, because sometimes when you are in it, you are at the center of it yourself, you know, you tend to go with what, I mean, you like and what is biased, I mean, there's obviously almost like a bias like towards that. But if you are cooking for people, it's different, because I might be loving my chisanyama and the people I'm cooking for are vegans, you know, and I mean, hello. And then you're wondering, why is not everyone eating my food that bad, you know? And you find that because you didn't understand who your audience is, you know, the food was good, but it's not relevant to where they are. And in terms of their insights and also their headspace and their psyche at that moment, you know, you don't understand. So for us, like with every project, and like, I mean, obviously it's an obvious thing, but it starts with the customer in mind, in terms of even the strategy is informed around the customer in terms of where is she now, you know, or where is he as a customer. The lifestyle changes. The customer now is a flexitarian. Sometimes they eat meat, maybe twice a week, and then 5 times it's all veg and other things like which are like a more like healthy and all of that. So it's the same thing with us. Like when you do a design, we need to bring all that strategy and insight into design and communicate that. And also, I mean, we spoke a lot about packaging in terms of like plastic. So some of the decisions that we make, like constantly, because that's where the customer is now, you know, get rid of plastic, you know, that. So every decision that is made, it's always there. It is part of the brief in terms of looking at innovative ways and opportunities where we can reduce, and sometimes no packaging at all, if you can, and all that. So for me, like customer insights in terms of where the customer is, like in terms of behavioral changes, are very important. And even more now, because we're living in a new normal now, you know. So basically the things that we knew 3 months ago, 4 months ago before lockdown, are going to change, you know. You're mentioning like we had plans for launches and stuff like that. All of that you have to sort of like relook, because their stuff might be irrelevant because the customer is no longer there. It's still the same year, but she's no longer there. You know, it's quite an interesting space, you know. So basically you're so out of touch or outdated, you know, already, or out of season, you know. But that's why, like, constantly, I mean, Cathy's team are doing an amazing job in terms of that and translating that from a content point of view. I really enjoyed the stuff that's been coming out on social media in terms of the content and all that. And then some of the content was produced by members of the team, you know, like in their comfort of their homes, and sometimes by like normal people, you know. So there were no supermodels and influencers and stuff like that. It's just like a new world, and people have been loving it because that's what
the response has been so.
That's the insight. Like I can relate. I see myself. It's peer to peer, you know. So that influences a lot of decisions, you know.
Cathy,
I think
sorry, Brian.
Into it, but it's good.
You know, Brian, a lot of what you're speaking about is basically this humanness, and because this in the end of the day, everything that we're going through is we're going through this human challenge together. And Cathy, how you bring this, as Brian said, he says through your social media and through the posts and the content, this is coming out, but there's a humanness behind the Woolworths brand that is coming out in this time as well, and how you bring this in the Woolworths ecosystem.
Yeah, you know, even through the darkness of what COVID is, I'm so grateful from a brand perspective that we've been able to show up in such a human way. And I think that, you know, the perception of Woolies for a long time has been one of being at an arm's length, even though it's loyally and deeply rooted in South Africa. I think that the perception has always been that it's a corporate, you know, it's very clinical, it's the black and white. And this has really given us an opportunity to show our realness. So to Brian's point, I mean, we have done lo-fi content out of the kitchens of people with fruit in the I mean, you know, this is like not the Woolies that you expect.
Dogs barking in the background, kids screaming.
Totally, yeah. But I mean, the realness has really resonated with our audience so much. And again, you know, speaking to the creativity and the level and layers of creativity within our team and within the teams throughout South Africa. I mean, to you guys all watching this as well, I'm sure you've experienced it yourself, but that we are able to create within our own at a standard at which we would have pre-lockdown. Can I show you one little piece of content? Just to
please, yes. Always love looking at this. So please.
So this was our. I'm going to show you two little things. This was our foods team and our special occasions team, who were tasked with. Because at this stage, our food store was open, but our fashion store wasn't open. So they could still go in store and pick up the product that we needed to advertise, basically, and push. And it was coffee and rusks. So these were the two pieces of work that the teams put together by themselves at home. Let me just make sure that I can do the share thing again. So that's that. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. That's brilliant that that's done from home. Actually makes me want coffee right now.
That is exactly.
I do, yeah.
It is so, I mean, who doesn't want a rusk and a coffee after that, or like a hot drink? I mean, it just is so beautiful. So it's, again, it's just shown different sides of our capabilities and what we are able to do.
And also just to add on that, Kath, it's been quite interesting as well, because even like creating work for, obviously for packaging, like obviously for store and all that, it's been quite interesting because in some instances we had to do shoots remotely from different locations, where you've got a photographer in one location. You've got a stylist somewhere else,
yeah.
director somewhere else, and all of that. And everyone is like obviously working together, obviously, to try to come up with a solution for this thing. And then one of the ones that we worked on was quite interesting, though. It was obviously a photographer and stylist who are a married couple. So that made it quite easy. You know, obviously they could work together at home, but you are directing from Microsoft Teams, from Zoom, or from WhatsApp. You know, can you try it at that angle? Can you move it to the left? Can you add more of this? You know? And you've got all these people like commenting and all that, because typically on a shoot, especially foods, I mean, it's because foods is especially in the packaging side, and obviously also in the comms and through the line space, it's highly legislated. There's some things that you can't do to obviously to mislead the customer, you know. So obviously then on a typical shoot, basically you have like a product developer. In our world, you have like an art director, you've got the photographer, stylist, assistants, and all that. It's quite a big production, about plus minus 10 people, you know. So you can you imagine now? You've got all these people on WhatsApp, you know, and then you've got the poor shame photographer like shooting and all that. Everyone is commenting, but it's been quite amazing what we're able to capture, though, like through all those. You know, I was talking about scarcity, you know, like that scarcity of staff and resources, of time and freedom of movement. But it's been quite interesting because basically it could mean that in terms of like saving costs and saving time and saving, there's a lot of like benefits that that come with that. So for us, it's been quite interesting, like creating around this time, like with all these limitations that we have. But I think it has pushed us out of our comfort zones. I know it sounds like a cliche, but literally comfort zone, contradiction goes where the comfort of your home, but comfort zone in a sense of, in a way of doing things. So it's been quite interesting, really, really interesting.
You know, that's the old quote that simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication. And I think that's what you're getting in this world of scarcity. You're having to simplify and make things better. We have a few minutes to go. I know Brian's got another meeting he's got to hop into. This should have been 2 hours, shouldn't it? There's so much more we needed to chat about, but something that's amazing, I think, that that WOOLWORTS does as an organization, as a brand, is to support the creative ecosystem and ensure that this ecosystem is being propped up, and even in a tough year like this. So one of the ways is obviously through the WOOLWORTS Student Portfolio Design Day. I mean, in terms of supporting creatives, supporting the ecosystem, why is this so important for WOOLWORTS? And Cathy, maybe I'll start with you on this.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's something that we all feel so passionate about. It's something that, whether it's at leadership or not level, WOOLWORTS leans so positively into. You know, we have students from Loeries that are working with us now at the moment in Brian's team. So it's not just about having the privilege of having budget to put towards sponsorship. We do have that privilege, and we're very grateful that we can use it towards creativity and arts. But it's about the actual action. It's about doing more than just paying lip service and writing a check. So where we have the opportunity, we've got lots of students that join us, students from Loeries as well, which has been amazing over the last year, and we will continue with that. And to grow in our own talents. We believe in South Africa. We are a richly South African company. That's what we are. So we are not looking over the seas for talent. We know that it's right here at our shores, and it's right here with us. And we are here to support and grow it even more.
Yeah. And also just to add on what Cathy is saying, I think also, like obviously the Loeries, I mean, one of the students is Eric Mkungo. Hopefully he's here on the call. He's an amazing, amazing student. He actually graduated this year. I mean, obviously he finished last year. His graduation was this year during lockdown. He was graduating during lockdown from his flat. So it was quite interesting sharing, oh, guys have just graduated and all that. Obviously they did it via, obviously it was a virtual graduation. But we're very passionate about that because creativity is in the DNA of the business, of the brand. It is there, it's in the DNA. It's not an event or a thing that you do once, and it runs through the veins of the brand. And that's why, like I was talking about examples earlier, whether you look at like store design, like how the store is laid out and how the materials are chosen and how the food is laid out and how the packaging is designed, how the communication and the advertising and the content is pulled together, and how the food, the product development, you know, that's creativity right there. That's innovation, you know, and you look at, I mean, there's so much more. And you can see that it's not an us and them. It's not like certain people who do that. It runs through the business. It's in the company, even from a high level, from the CEO right down. Because I remember I was doing my team were working on a business card for one of our CEOs, and I was so amazed about the amount of detail and how technical was in terms of how the thing was laid out, about the spacing, about the font, about this. I kept on saying, you're supposed to be worried about numbers, you know. But for me, I said, but you know, it runs in the DNA of the company. You know, everyone gives a damn, you know, like in terms of how things are done and all that. So for me, I think that's what excites me. And also, like, one of the events, like big annual events that we sponsor is Design Indaba as well. And also, which is evident. I mean, sponsoring Design Indaba, geez, like almost like 20 years now.
Wow.
And I think we're the longest like sponsor of Design Indaba, actually, the longest. I mean, we've seen, because funny enough, I used to work for Interactive Africa before.
For Ravi, and
I worked with Ravi for 8 years, actually. Yeah, so it's been interesting to be on both sides, but the passion for the brand, for design and creativity, you know, like, it's been really amazing, because we know the value that creativity and innovation has, like that creative economy, because also that's our contribution as well to the obviously creative community at large, to make sure that that inspiration and that immersion and all of that happens all the time, because we believe in the power of creativity and the power of design and the power of ideas that are powerful enough to change the economy, change our social standing, change the world, obviously, for its betterment. Yeah, I sounded like a politician there for some reason. Sorry about that.
I think we're all in politics. So. Brian and Cathy, I mean, this has been amazing. Thank you both for joining. Maybe before I let both of you go, just some parting words of support. And I think there's always a need for motivation and for some inspiration in this time to everyone across Africa and the Middle East, not just to those in South Africa. So Cathy, to start with you, just some parting words.
Yeah, I think just keep your head towards the sunshine. I mean, I think that this is, as I say, it's incredibly dark, difficult times. And as creatives, we can really influence how people experience this time for the better. And I think that it's our responsibility to do just that. But we can't do that unless we look after ourselves. So look after yourself, look after those around you.
Yeah. No, important. It really,
Brian?
It really starts from within, you know, like it's very important to look after ourselves around this time. Because, I mean, we can't deny the fact that, I mean, everyone is anxious around this time. I mean, with this mysterious enemy that we can't see, but we can see what the enemy is doing around the world. It's important that we keep saying, and also I think mental health for me is very, very important, you know, to make sure that you look after yourself. And if you feel that you're overwhelmed, you know, say something, you know. I know that sometimes people want to act tough around this time because you want to be seen as a weakling and all of that. There's you know, like it's good to be vulnerable and say, like, you know what, I'm not doing well. You know, I'm not okay. I'm struggling with this and all that, and get as much support as possible. But from a professional point of view, I want to end with that quote I mentioned earlier, which really like stuck with me. Scarcity acts as a catalyst for creativity and innovation. I love that. You know, it's yeah. If there's one thing you should take out of all this nonsense we're talking about, that you can post it.
We should have changed our topic.
Yeah.
Brian Mtongana, Design Director at WOOLWORTHS Marketing, and Cathy Lund, Head of Content at WOOLWORTHS Marketing. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for all the great insights and taking us and giving us a sneak peek into all the amazing work that WOOLWORTHS being done. If anyone's on the call and wants to find out more about the WOOLWORTHS Student Portfolio Day, please go to the Loeries website, which is loeries.com. Or you can also go and find out more about the amazing stuff that WOOLWORTHS is up to by going to woolworths.co.za. This chat's going to be available on YouTube in a few days. So if anyone's missed it, please feel free to share it so they can watch it. And if you have not entered the Loeries for 2020, entries are absolutely free this year.
Yeah.
So no excuses not to enter. So please get your entries in before the 15th of July, which is when our final entry deadline is. So looking forward to seeing all those amazing entries. Brian and Cathy, thank you once again, and all the best to you and everyone at WOOLWORTHS. Stay safe during this time, and looking forward to doing this again sometime.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invite.
Thanks, Cathy. Thanks, Brian.
Keep safe.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.